Hello everyone and welcome to this amazing tutorial video on SQL Delete, Drop and Alter command along with an amazing demo on how to remove duplicates from a database, which in our case is a SQL table. So without any further ado, let's get started.
How to delete a column in SQL. But before we begin, let me tell you guys that we have daily updates on multiple technologies, and if you're a tech geek in a continuous hunt for latest technological trends, then consider getting subscribed to our YouTube channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon to never miss an update from Simplilearn. Now without further ado, let's get started. So how do you delete a column in SQL? Now let's quickly take a look on the syntax we will be using today. So we will be using the alter table keyword, then the table name, the drop keyword to drop a particular column name, and followed by the drop keyword we have the column name which we are supposed to be dropping off. Now that we have a clear idea about the syntax, let's get back to the MySQL workbench to execute this particular command. So far we tried to create a database, create a table, add some data onto the table using the insert command, and update a particular tuple and try to eliminate a single row. Now we are trying to eliminate a complete column here. So let's not eliminate the existing columns, let's try to create a new column and then try to eliminate it. So for that we will be using the alter table command. So this is the alter table command and the employee table, which is the employee table name. Then we are trying to use the add keyword and we are trying to add a new column, that is the pin code, which is a varchar or character data type and not null. We're not keeping it as null. And in case if we did not add any value into the pin code, the default value will be NA, which is a text type. So we are encoding it using single quotes. Now let's try to run this code and let's quickly try to check the table. Employee table, and there you go. Now we have pin code here and the null values in the pin code. So we don't want this pin code over here, so we will eliminate this pin code column using the same alter command. So alter table, then the table name, and then the column we want to drop using the drop keyword, which is pin code. So let's execute this command and see the output. So there you go. The pin code column has been successfully eliminated. So that's how you completely eliminate a column in SQL. We will try to delete a row in SQL. How do you delete a row in SQL? Let's quickly take a look at the syntax. So we will be using the delete keyword and the from keyword, adding the table name and giving a where clause with a user-defined condition. So this will be a basic syntax for the process of deleting a single row in the SQL table. Now to understand in a much better way, let's get back to the SQL workbench. So now we are on the SQL workbench and previously we tried to create a table, add some data using the insert command and update a value using the update command. Now let's say we have to delete the last row, which is 1006 Jeremy Hyderabad. Let's say Jeremy found a new job in a new organization and now you need to eliminate his credentials from your database. So we will be using the following code, that is delete from table name is employee table and the where clause, now the condition, which is EMP ID is equals to 1006. Now let's try to run the code. There you go. The employee is being eliminated from that particular database. Now let's try to recheck the table. So select star from EMP LOYEE table, run the code, and there you go. The last ID, which was 1006, has been eliminated from your database. And that's how you delete a row in SQL, and we will learn how to eliminate duplicate rows in SQL, how to eliminate duplicate records in SQL table. Now, we can eliminate the duplicate records in SQL by a few methods. So we will use the most simplest ones. The first one is using the inner join along with a where clause, and the second one is a simple and the humble distinct command. Now we have a brief idea on the methods. Let's understand them in a much more detailed way through a practical demonstration. Now let's get back to the MySQL workbench to understand the codes in a much better way. So now we are on the MySQL workbench and we will get access to our Simplilearn database, and we are in the Simplilearn database. So previously we used to work on a employee table. So let's not work on the same employee table since we have actual data there. Let's try to duplicate that table so that we will have some duplicate entries in between. So we will be changing the employee ID numbers and we will also be using the same employee ID numbers. So the employee ID has some details to it. So we'll be understanding that in a much more detail while we are executing the commands. And we will also try to remove the primary key from the table. So I'll also explain why we are going to include the primary table, and also will explain the usage of eliminating it. So when you have the primary key in the table, SQL Workbench or any SQL will automatically stop you from adding duplicated values. But let's say if you add a duplicate entry with a new primary key, right, then it will not stop you. So we'll also have a demonstration about what to do in such scenarios. So now let's try to quickly create a duplicate employee table, which will be employee table 2, and then we will try to add some duplicate entries into it. Remember, we will not use the primary key here. So the code will be create table employee table 2, and everything will be same, which is from the previous table, which will be the employee ID, integer type, employee name, character type, this character type, pin code will be integer. And normally we include the primary key in this way. Primary key, brackets open, em. So this is the way how we add the primary key, but we are not going to add it since we want to know what happens if we enter data which also has the duplication of the primary key, right? So we will not give any primary key over here. Let's quickly run this. There you go. The new duplicated table of employee table has been created. Let's try to insert the same values with some duplication. There you go. I have pasted the command for inserting the values, and if you observe clearly at the end, I have repeated the values of Tony, Katie, Sama, June, and Gloria. So these 5 will be the duplicate values, and also we are trying to enter the duplicated primary key. Since we did not declare the ID as the primary key, it will accept all these values. Let's quickly run this, and there you go. The values have been successfully entered into the table. Let's quickly see if we have the duplication. Select star from employee table Control enter. There you go. So you can see the duplicate values are also added onto the table. Now how do you remove these duplications? Remember we discussed the distinct method, which is the second one. So that happens to be the most simplest one. Let's see how it works. So here we will write a simple select command. Select distinct star from the employee table 2. Now this will give us the distinct values, right? But again, when you run this particular command, which is select star, you will have all the details back again, right? Our job is to eliminate them. So what we will do is we'll create a duplicate table. So let's name it as DUP table. So create table and duplicate table will be the name. Now quickly execute this command. There you go. Now we have the data which we obtained from the distinct command is stored into the table named as duplicate table. Now, let's quickly drop the employee table too. Okay, the table has been successfully dropped. So when we run the same command once again, it says Simplilearn DB did not find any table by the name employee table 2. That means it's been eliminated. Now the next thing we need to do is rename it. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to use the alter table and we are trying to rename duplicate copy to employee table 2 so that we have the actual table here after eliminating the duplicated values. It's not dupe copy, it's actually dupe table. Right. There you go. Now let's execute this. Successfully done. Now if we execute this particular select command, you can see we have the cleaned data without any duplicate entries. This was one of the simplest ways of eliminating duplicates in a SQL table. Now let's try to get a step ahead and try to use some join commands and where commands and where conditions, and using those we will try to eliminate the duplications in a table. Now we are talking about a table which does have the primary key and the data will be duplicated. Let me explain you how. Now let us declare the primary key as employee ID. The key is EMP ID. Right now we do have a primary key. Now there is no way. Okay, let's try to create this. Before that, let's try to truncate employee table 2. So we can use the not drop table, we can use the truncate. So let's replace drop with truncate so that the data which we have in employee table will be removed. There you go. Now we will, or let's quickly drop the table because we are trying to create the new table, right? So let's create the new table. So once we have executed the drop table command, the table has been successfully removed. Now let's try to create this particular table. Control enter. There you go. The table got successfully created. Now let's try to duplicate the same entries. Remember, I'm not changing the primary key here. Now when I run this command, I will get an error which says primary key cannot be duplicated. So here you can see duplicate entry for 9 and you cannot have the duplicate entries, right? This is one way to avoid duplications. But what if someone comes up with a brilliant idea to replace the primary key? Now if I change the primary key as 17, 18, let's say we also have this data copied. Let's duplicate this. Right, this will be our 19 and this will be our 20. Now we have unique primary keys for all our data and we also know there are some duplications. Let's try to execute this command and see the output. So somewhere something is not correct yet. Okay, this one. So Tony has been repeated, so we can have a different ID for Tony. Let's say we have Tony as 21. Try to execute the command once again. It should be clear now. Okay, it still has some duplication somewhere. Yes, it's right here. Let's keep this as 22. Okay, I think we made a lot of duplications somehow. Let's quickly take a look if all the major keywords are duplicated or not. So we copied from Gloria. So after Gloria, we will remove these. So Gloria, so we just make sure, we're trying to make sure that the primary keys are unique here. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22. There you go. So now we believe that all the primary keys are unique. Let's try to run this command and see if we get the same error or not. No. So now all the data has been inserted into the duplicate table, which is employee table 2. And we also have some duplicate entries. Now, how would you recognize that we don't have any duplicates, or how would you recognize which data has been exactly duplicated, and how do you even remove it? Now the old distinct command is not going to work. Anyhow, let's see if it works by any chance. So when I try to run the distinct command, it will give me all 22 rows with all the duplicate entries, right? In this case, we can use the first method, which was the join and where condition method, right? Let's try to do that. So we are going to use the delete command, delete T1 from employee table to T1 inner join employee table 2 as T2. So we are declaring two different tables. So we are considering T1 as one table and T2 as the next or second table. So T1 and T2 are the copies of the same existing employee table 2, right? Now we are joining these two tables and we are having a where condition over here. So from table T1, we are going to eliminate table 1 from table 2, where we have an intersection and where we have the employee IDs greater than employee ID in employee. Okay, let's not confuse. So let's execute the command first. Okay, let's execute this to understand what I mean here. So here, when we go a little down, you can see 14 for Tony, right? Actual employee ID of Tony is 9, but we have 14 for Tony. And Gloria, we have 18, 19, 20. And again, for Katie, we have 22. The actual number of Katie is 10, right? So now it will try to recognize the highest number of employee ID. So it will recognize the highest employee ID number and it will retain it, and rest all the numbers will be eliminated. So this is the first where condition, and we're also giving a string comparison function where SQL will try to identify if there is a similarity between the employee name of the first table and the employee name of the second table. And we know that when you give the string comparison operation, if it results in 0, it means the strings are equal. If it results in 1, it means the strings are not matching. Now that we understood the logic of this particular statement, let's try to execute it. So there you go. So we have executed the command. Now let's try to see what's left in the table. There you go. Now we should be having the usual 13 number of employees in our table. And you can see that the records are retained where the employee ID number is the highest. Remember, we had the number 10 as employee ID for Katie, and we have that over here. In case if you want the actual numbers to be placed however they were, you can make a small change to your command. All you need to do is keep this particular, or change this particular greater than symbol to lower than symbol, and you will retain the actual numbers of the employee records. So that's how you can eliminate the duplicate entries in the table. And if you ask me, hey, only 2 conditions are enough? Don't you think the pin code and we also have pin code and the address of the employees, don't you think that is also important? Yes, you can also do that. You can make some minor modifications to your code and try to include all those remaining things, and again you can do the same, right? Now let's try to eliminate the data in our table. Let's truncate it, and we should be having no data left in our table. And let's try to insert the duplicate entries once again. And okay, before that, let's try to do this particular execution. Remember, we tried to keep the employee ID. Let's try to execute that and try to print it, and we should be having the actual numbers over here, right, as expected. Now let's again truncate the data and try to compare the conditions, or we will be using the where condition and we'll have all the parameters included in our condition. Let's truncate the table, and now let's try to add the duplicate entries once again. There you go, we have all the duplicate entries. Enter. Now what we will be doing is we will be using the same command, but the only change will be the string comparison or the where condition, right? So you can keep this string comparison if you want, or if you can change that. Let me change that actually. So instead of this, we will use this particular command where we are trying to compare the employee ID. So let's keep the employee ID as lesser than, so that we have the actual employee ID numbers, and we are using an AND condition over here, so that this particular condition should be valid and the employee name should be equal to the employee name in T1 and T2. Yep. And the next one is, here we have the employee address. So the employee address in T1 and T2 should also be same, and pin code from both the tables should also be same. So what we are trying to compare here is we are trying to keep the employee ID with the least number or the least value, and the names of the employee should be same, the address of the employee should be same, and the pin code of the employee should be same. In that particular condition, you can try to delete the record. Let's try to execute this, and there you go, the command got executed. And now let's try to execute the select command, which should give us the final result. So here you go, Control Enter, and you have the data here. So now we have successfully eliminated all the duplicates by comparing the values in each and every single column, and we also have retained the original ID of each and every employee. Now that's how you try to eliminate duplicates in SQL tables.
Hi there, if you like this video, subscribe to the Simplilearn YouTube channel and click here to watch similar videos. To nerd up and get certified, click here.